Hey guys, welcome to the show. We got Keaton, aka the Muscle, in the house today. Keaton, thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely, man.
Thanks for having
Honored.
me here
Yeah,
at your
absolutely. You're
house.
at my house. Yeah,
You're
no,
like,
I'm
what are you talking
honored.
about, Nick?
I'm honored.
Guys, Keaton is an amazing man. I've gotten a little bit closer to him this last week. We had him come speak at our event. Keaton's good friends with, Ed Milet, Andy Elliott, tons of guys. Who was the other leadership coach that you're talking about?
John Maxwell,
John Maxwell,
Tony
yeah.
Robbins, a lot of people in the coaching space. Bradley,
Yeah.
really good friends.
It's amazing. Keaton, your health?
I'm 37.
Okay. And you started, Keaton has built Limitless Arena. It was a massive success here in Utah,
Yeah,
personal development seminar.
yeah.
And Keaton has built Limitless Society this last couple years.
2 years, yeah.
It's on pace for about 30 million this year. And he is a devout husband and father. He has 5 girls.
5 daughters.
He's got a busy family, very passionate about family. His wife and him hold these little mini seminars here at his house.
Yeah,
And just pour into these families, helping them find success in their relationships, not just in the business. And that's what I admire about you, man. And so I've always told people I speak to and talk to, like, it's hard to find a good mentor that has what I've wanted, right?
Yeah.
Like I told you, we were talking before the show about Grant Cardone, and
yeah,
I go to him and I got proximity, but there's a massive filter for advice, right?
yeah.
And so there's good things that he'll share with business and with sales. There's a huge filter for me, but with when it comes to character and other things, I'm just like, don't even talk to me. Like,
Yeah.
like there's a wall.
Yeah.
But guys like yourself, that's what I love.
Yeah.
And so it's an honor to be here.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate that.
yeah, it's one thing when a mentor comes in and gives their advice, but it's like, well, what cost did you pay to get there,
Yeah.
right? And speaking of, we're talking about Hormozy too, like the cost he's paid to get where he's at. I don't want to pay that.
No.
And you look at Elon Musk, and Elon Musk himself says, I don't recommend my life for anybody. It's lonely, it's sad. Who wants to get there, right?
No.
So I don't admire those guys, And so, anyways, privileged to be here. Love to learn from you, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here, dude. Excited to do it.
So one of the first things I want to hit off was a little bit about your story. What was a big turning point for you in your career or in your life?
I get the opportunity to share this story a lot with people. I grew up, I was the oldest of 5 kids. And all growing up, my father was just a 9-to-5er, get a degree, 401k, the safe route, the safe route, the safe route.
Yeah.
And he always pushed that very heavily on us. And it was always backed by the safe route. It's the safe route, right? And when he was 47, he was, I think for all intent and purpose, he was successful. He was, for middle class, he was successful. He was the CEO of a government contracting company. And all the things that he had taught didn't come to fruition at the end of his life. When I was 21, he ended up actually passing away. And the last 2 years of his life, his company kind of threw him to the wind. They were like, you're too sick. You're not able to fulfill your duties here as the CEO. And they essentially kicked him to the curb. And I remember spending a lot of time with my father on his deathbed while I was 21 and hearing from him through all the things that we discussed, the regrets that he had that I don't even know if he had identified as regrets. I did, because I knew from a really young age that I could never really live that route. I just couldn't do it. There was something in me, and I have this conversation a lot. Are entrepreneurs born or are they made? I think both.
Agreed.
But I was born to be an entrepreneur. I could never work for somebody. I never got good grades. I couldn't jump through hoops. I couldn't do what other people told me to do if it didn't align with what I believed. So while I was growing up and I disagreed with all these things, he was the only one that I had to look for. So I was always getting this advice that never really sat well with me. And I specifically remember the last few weeks of his life seeing regret on his deathbed of not truly accomplishing what I think my father could have accomplished. Because my dad was very talented in his mind. He was very smart, very well-to-do, very well put together, studious. I think my father could have built the company that he was the CEO of and made tons more money just by owning the company, right? And as he passed away, I made a promise to him that I would ultimately take care of my siblings and my mom. I made a pretty heavy promise that at that time, I had no idea how I was going to fulfill it. No idea. But I knew I would never fulfill it the route that he had given me, which was go to school, get your degree, live by the rules of society, if you will. And at that time, there was only one thing that was really specific to me that I leaned into, and it was, I would rather sink on my own ship than sail on somebody else's. And that was, it was like it was in my bones. I couldn't make that up. It was just what I believed. And so really early on in life, after watching the death of my father, I realized like entrepreneurship was the only route for me. There was no other route. I couldn't work for somebody. I couldn't be underneath somebody. I couldn't abide by their rules or jump through their hoops. So out of the gates, when I was 21, I really started building companies. And from the time I was 21 until the time I was, I think, about 30, I had built 15 to 20 companies from scratch. And I didn't have any money, so everything I did was all, structuring deals and structuring financing. I never had any money given to me to build these companies. So again, like for me, the pivoting moment of my life was, one, accepting that the things that my dad had taught me about safety and 9 to 5 and 401k, like that they weren't real, and that there was no safety in life. There is no safety. And for some reason, we as a society think that that's what's safe. It's why so many dumb kids get out of high school and they go spend all of this money and they go into debt for college because they believe that that's the safe route. And if I could stand in front of the whole world and say, what if you could get into the same amount of debt and build whatever you want to build and get a much better return, which ultimately we all want, and the risk and reward is much, much different. But neither route is safe. So if you know neither route, none of them are safe, why not chase the one that ultimately, aligns with your core? And that for me was the pivoting moment in my life. And from that day till today, that's what I've done. I've worked for myself. I've built my own companies. I've built with partners. I've built with friends. I've even built with family. But I've never, ever built underneath somebody. It's always been my own thing, and that's the entrepreneur way. That's the only way that I knew how.
Yeah, I feel like there's a facade of safety that society gives with school, with work, the salary position, the benefits, and a lot of our audience is salespeople. We got entrepreneurs, sales leaders. And we all have seen people that try to get into this avenue, and they're afraid. They're like, oh, I don't know, but it's like, I got this. I'm like, that is exactly, like, this is the gateway for you to break free of what is this facade of safety. Yeah. Because you retiring at 73 years old is not safe.
No.
Right? And not being able to create the freedom and lifestyle that you want, that's not safe.
No.
And so I think identifying, like, what does your ideal life look like? Like, actually, like, if money wasn't a problem, if you could run your schedule, and then compare that to your life, and then tell me, is your life safe right now?
100%. And the thing that I always teach, and I like that your listeners are sales guys, really salesmen are in any form an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because you eat what you kill. That's plain and simple what it is. And that's how I fell in love with what I was doing in the very beginning, is I did start as a sales guy, and I was like, wait, no one's over me. No one oversees me. I don't have hours. It's just whatever I sell is what I take home.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that's really cool to talk about is that if you want to become successful in life in any aspect, you have to become a good salesman. Mm-hmm. There's no one in this world who got anywhere not becoming a good salesman. You've got to sell yourself, your product, your service. You've got to sell your vision. You've got to sell your leadership. Shit, you got to sell yourself to the spouse that you want. Mm-hmm. Like, every aspect is sales. And so, the people that you have listening to this understand that if you're already there, you're halfway through the battle of entrepreneurship. If you're a good salesman and you hone in on that skill, you're already halfway done with entrepreneurship, because
Yeah.
the lifeblood of any business is sales. It's nothing else.
Yeah.
I meet with people all the time that have great proposals and great spreadsheets and great everything except for sales. They don't have a real company.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it is sales. That's the beginning and the end of all of this. And, you know, for those that listen to this, like, if I'm a good salesman, the first route I would go is entrepreneurship, because I know I can build something and sell a product and a service, because I know I can do it. And from there, when I build it and the revenue comes in, I can create the infrastructure around it, which ultimately is what I did. I had no idea what I was doing when I was 21, but I was damn good at sales. So I sold, and then I figured out the back end, right? And that ultimately is what entrepreneurship is. And, you know, talking to sales guys, talking to people who want to be entrepreneurs, it's all the same shit, man. Get really good at sales and then decide what you want to sell. Is it your product or someone else's? And then go make a shit ton of money.
Yeah. I love what you said, that eat what you kill. Like, that is a principle that, like, every person, if they want to make it big, has to learn.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what sales is, like the gateway to get into entrepreneurship, because there's less risk. The system, the product, it's already figured out. The training, you just have to go plug and play and learn to get rewarded based on your effort and your skill set and the value that you bring.
Which is an entrepreneur. I mean, really, entrepreneur and sales, it's the same
There's
thing.
a thin line. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I've been obsessed with, and we talked about this before the show, Keaton, was how, like, I've applied entrepreneurial, like, training and mentorship, and I've realized how it's taking my sales game to a different level, right? Like $200,000 a month in commissions, and then doing that, and then still implementing more time onto my self-development, right? And it's created this energy and success that has forced me to stop knocking doors, to stop running even appointments.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to. Like, I actually didn't want that.
Yeah.
Unlike most guys, I was very happy with what I was doing, the money I was making, and the lifestyle and the value I was bringing people. I did secretly want to add more value and grow, but I think people can shift the focus and start applying personal development, self-development, and really see their game go to a new level. And I think one of the principles is that we talk about a lot is investing in yourself, and be willing to take a bet on yourself. For entrepreneurs, it's easy. They see the game, but salespeople, I think, struggle more, you know, and I think they limit themselves because they're just a salesperson.
Which is crazy, because both of the sides that we're talking about understand it. It's the salesman that's in the middle that doesn't understand it. So the 9-to-5ers know they have to invest in college. The entrepreneurs know they have to invest in mentorship. And then you have the sales guys in the middle, and they're like, I just got to get better at sales. Well, how do you get better, man? You yourself get better. And true personal development always leads to becoming a better salesman. It just does, because how you communicate, how you lead, how you talk, how you live, all of those things, it's all personal development. And again, that's my greatest message to the world, is the more you put into yourself, no matter what it is you're doing, the more you get out of what you're doing. I mean, even if I'm a brain surgeon, the more money I put into becoming a better brain surgeon, the more I become the guy that people want to come to when they have to have brain surgery. Like, that's what it is. The more you qualify yourself through personal investment, through time, money, and energy, the better you become. And then, you know, we talked about this before we started, but you then become what you attract. And dude, at the end of the day, everybody's, especially sales guys, they're seeking more sales. They're seeking more sales. Yeah, they're chasing and chasing and chasing. Well, how do you attract more sales? By becoming attractive to it. How do you become attractive to it? You work on yourself. And that's ultimately the game. So it is funny. It is, like I said, both sides of the spectrum understand it. It's the ones in the middle that don't. It's the sales guys. It's the CEOs, the CFOs that are like, I don't have to do that anymore. Yes, you do.
Yeah, you do. Dude, we were talking too before the show about Andy Elliott and Jeremy Miner, and I've come close to Jeremy Miner, and Andy Elliott's got the personal development. Jeremy Miner's got the tactics. And, you know, Andy is a machine, and Jeremy Miner is also a machine, just in different ways. But the reality is both are critical. And that's a large part of my mission, is bringing both of those aspects to salespeople. Say, hey, look, you have to develop yourselves. And it's not just about, like, you know, just that. Like, you do have to understand how to ask questions, win people over. But if I did have to pick, like, one side or the other, I would veer towards the self-development over the tactics.
Always.
Like, one of my mantras has always been transformation over tactics. because you're a walking, talking billboard. And my level of self-development now versus even a year ago, Keaton, is completely different.
Yeah.
Like the caliber of a man that I am, and it's nowhere where I'll be in 5-10 years. But my level of training in solar knowledge, it's almost the same, right? I've leveled up in other ways. But if you were to put myself up against Nick a year ago in sales, I will kick my own ass.
Yeah.
And the difference isn't technique. It's not one-liners. It's not closing methods. It's who I've become.
Yeah, to ultimately deliver. I tell people, I give people a really simple idea of how this really works. So for a long time, I owned a mechanic shop. And in the mechanic shop, we had the best tools in the world. Well, I could take someone off of the street and ask them to swap a motor, and it would take them who knows how long. Or I could ask the best mechanic who, through experience and growth, has learned how to become and use those tools effectively and efficiently. Same tools, completely different mechanic. It's the same thing in life. The tools and the things you learn in sales, they're always going to be there. They're always the simple shit. Like, these are the tactics. But who I am to use those tools is really the dictating factor as to how well I get shit done and how efficiently I get shit done. So it's the same thing in life. Like, dude, the tools to success in life are simple. You could label them out: discipline, like all of these tools that we talk about. But if you yourself are not the person that can take and use those tools, then you should work more effectively and efficiently on you yourself. And it's why Jim Rohn always taught the work that you do the most should be on yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why he says work twice as hard on you as you do on anything else, and you'll build the life that you want. And that's ultimately what it is. No matter who you are, no matter what industry you're in, sales, CFO, entrepreneurship, if I work on me, I will qualify me to use the tools that I've been given and be much better than someone else who has the same tools.
Yeah. We're talking about this the other day, that the bottleneck of the business is always the leader.
Always.
And, this last year I've seen, I've always believed in what Jim Rohn has said with, work hard on yourself. I've always been the raving fan of him. And it wasn't until this last year that I was kind of forced, Keaton, to work hard on myself, because I was very, humbled. Is a little bit of my story. And what I learned accidentally through the process was I worked less, on time, at the job.
Yeah.
My business has almost 10x'd in half a year. Half a year. And I thought I was just going to kind of coast through and survive. And it's almost 10x'd.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me. And salespeople don't understand. It's not like you can go get a Jeremy Miner course and take, I love Jeremy Miner, but you can go learn sales tactics and training and take your income from, $250K to $500,000 or $750K or $1 million. Or you could go develop yourself and then go way beyond.
Go 10x that.
Yeah. And be in my position where you're forced to, you don't have time to run appointments because you're too busy attracting the salespeople to come build with you.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
I think it's an amazing thing. I want to change gears real quick and ask you things related, like what I admire with you, Keaton, as I mentioned earlier, was your ability to win in different areas of your life. And I want to talk to in regards to our audience of managing their business career and their financial success in that aspect, but also in their relationships and their personal time.
Yeah.
And what's your advice to guys and gals that are struggling to find balance? I don't love the word balance, but I like to say, but to thrive in all those areas.
Yeah, I think there's two pieces to this. Number one, it's to understand that there is no such thing as balance. There really isn't. I swap the word from balance to integration. I spent a lot of time with Tim Grover. He's become a good friend of mine, and he was the coach for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, and he always teaches and talks about how these people that were so great had zero balance in life. Like, Michael Jordan wasn't good at anything else except for being a basketball player. And when I hear things like that, I hear a human being not living up to their full potential. And listen, I'm not saying he didn't live up to his full potential as a basketball player.
Right.
But as a husband and as a father and as a friend and as an entrepreneur, all of those other things. And it was ultimately because we got sold this lie that to become great at one thing, you must give up everything else.
Right.
And the truth is, and what I have found in my life, and listen, I'm not the richest, I'm not the most successful, but I am someone with rarity that has every single aspect the way that they want in their life. My life to a T is exactly what I want. My marriage is the way I want it. My children are the way that I want them. My relationship with them, my success with my friends, my money, my health, all of those things, because I have learned it's not about balance, it's about integration. And when I say integration, it's ultimately how you weave everything that you desire in together. And that's a hard thing to do. And then the second piece to that is understanding that all of us have been given a certain amount of time on this planet, and that we should become better at our accountability towards that time than anyone else. If I become a time management savage, I actually can realize there's more time in the day to do the things that I want to do. You hear all the time, and I would imagine we'll use Michael Jordan for a great example. The guy probably practiced 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And when he came home, what did he do? He sat down on the couch. He put zero energy into his family and into his wife and into anything else because he was exhausted from the time that he had put into basketball, which I get. I understand that. But if he had time managed himself better, he could have put the same amount of effort and energy into his marriage, into his children, into his businesses, into anything else. And it's not the same time for time.
Right.
I can put all of my energy into my work 8 hours a day, and then I can put all of my energy into my family for 2 hours a day. And then I can put all of my time and energy into me and my growth for 2 hours a day. And then I can put all of my energy into whatever else I'm seeking. It's more of an integration of energy put into that which I want than it is balance.
Yeah.
Because you think, well, I only have so much energy to put in. No, you don't.
Yeah, it's a myth. Yeah.
And most people think I only have so much time. They don't even think about it as energy. They think about it as time. No, you don't.
Yeah.
There's 168 hours in a week, and you're spending 50 of those hours getting good at the one thing you're going at, and the rest of that time is pissed off doing nothing of importance because you're too tired.
Right.
And ultimately, you have to come to the realization that the same energy that I put into one thing, I should put into everything that I truly desire. If I want to be good at sales, then I should put a shit ton of time into the training and practices of sales. But I should take that same mindset and mentality and put it into my marriage, put it into my children, put it into my friends, put it into my personal development. All the things that I long for, I should put that same amount of energy in. I tell people this all the time when I map out. I spend a lot of time when I mentor people mapping out what their life looks like on a day-to-day basis. And we always go through this like quick thing of, okay, man, how much are you working? I work 50 hours a week. Great. So after sleep and after work, you have about 70 hours left in a week. What are you doing with that time? Well, I'm exhausted. Well, that's not an excuse.
Yeah.
We're all tired.
Yeah.
How much of those 70 hours are you putting into your marriage? How much are you putting into your family? How much are you putting into your friends? And then I force them to start mapping out time and its allotment of energy. So I tell people all the time, I put a 1 hour into my wife every single day. Now that may not seem like a lot,
Right.
but my 1 hour of 100% energy is 10 times what a man will put into his wife when he gives her 4 hours a day. I put in 1 hour every single day with my children. Well, I put more into my children in that 1 hour than a stay-at-home mom does in the 12 hours with her children.
Yeah.
And it's all about the allotment of energy into time rather than just saying, I put all my energy out into this one thing. I don't have any more energy for anything else. Yes, you do.
Right.
And it's your belief in that.
Tell me what you do. So intentionality is massive. And I've realized in my own life how showing up, even when I'm tired, like you can shift instantly. And I've learned this with Tony Robbins. But how are you intentional with your time when you are with your wife? And let's focus on that one first.
Yeah. So a really good example. So I map out my days. I have every hour by hour mapped out, which for some people sounds monotonous, but it's really not. It allots more time. I spend the beginning of my day in preparation and personal preparation. I then get into the gym, which is my me time. I then get into my work, and I work about 10 hours a day. Then I allot at the end of the day a full hour of time with my wife, and that is completely separate from anything else that I'm doing. My work, my kids, myself, everything else is put onto a shelf, and I'll come back to it. That means no phone time, no thinking doing other things. I'm putting all of my time and energy in that moment into her.
You're fully present.
Fully present. And that really is the superpower that I teach people all over the world. You want to become powerful? Be the only one in a room that's present at any given time. Most people are not present. Most people live in the past or think about the future. They never stay in the present. And then those moments are just always fleeting moments from future to future or from past to past. So for me, I block out an hour a day of time that is dedicated with all of my energy into my spouse. And then on top of that, I also dedicate a date night. Every single week we have date night. I don't give a shit if the world is burning down. We will get popcorn together and we will watch it burn down together. It's our time. And allotting that time and being very dedicated and a time management savage is really what it takes to do that. You can always find excuses. When I'm at work and something happens, I usually am like, I don't have time for that because I got to work. Why can't I do that in my marriage? Why can't I do that with my children? Why can't I do that in my hobbies or in my growth or anything else that's really important? You can. You just have accepted in your mind priorities like, oh, I got to make a lot of money, so I want to be really successful. So I kick out anything else that doesn't pertain to that. Well, do that same shit, have that same principle for every aspect that you want to grow in.
Yeah.
And then go at it, right? My wife knows, like, I'm here, but I'm not really here when I'm working.
Right.
When it's me and you time, I'm not working. I'm not focusing on the children. I'm focusing on you and I.
So is it focus on conversation? Like, what do you guys usually do in walk-in?
I have kind of a set thing. One of them is touch. Like I will always hold hands or we'll cuddle. We will always review our day together. Like, how was your day? With the real intention of understanding what she says, right? When I'm really present, I ask a question and I really want to know the answer. I'm not just saying, hey, how was your day, right?
Yeah, right.
Being very specific in those things and then doing the same thing. Well, let me tell you about my day. And then also focusing on every energy that I put into her, I also expect back. I want her to put her energy. I know you're a stay-at-home mom with 5 kids. I know you got 15 things, but I need you right here, right now with me. And I expect that as you expect it from me, and being very intentional, which you talked about a little bit earlier. And the more intentional I am with that time and the energy that I put into it, the more I get out of it.
Yeah.
And I can literally put an hour a day into her and get more out of that hour than 99% of people that spend a whole day with their spouse.
Love that. Yeah. I've always been a big proponent of that, Keaton. And I think you closed the gap on a few things. But I've realized this last year for me, the power of being present and also the power of setting boundaries. For example, you mentioned the phone. And if you send a text out in that time, I mean, not only are you distracting yourself in that moment where it's impossibly fully present, or if you're thinking about your work or your goals or whatever, but you're also basically sending out like an open invitation to have it done again.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to have your own personal boundaries at work and like allowing yourself to be present. And some people, it's going to take some time to really break through, like, why can't I stay and be present with this person? Yeah. And it's worth the time to do that. And, but also communicating, like, it's one thing to tell people like, oh, hey, here's my boundaries, but it's like message communicated, message received. Yeah. Do they understand? You won't hear from me between, 7 p.m., 8 p.m., whatever it is, and then 8 a.m. Yeah. Right? I'm working on myself, and then that's relationship time.
Yeah, 100%. And setting those boundaries so clearly that those you love know what they are, they can also abide and support in that. Yeah. My wife knows I'm here. My office is here in the home. But, when I go to work and you start talking to me, I'm in work mode and I'm not thinking about what you're saying. So please understand, I'm not going to be present enough to give you the answers that you want. And my wife has learned really, really well now. Like, I'm not going to bring shit to him that I want answers to, because I know
Right.
where his mind is in this current moment. And
Yeah.
his boundaries are, just because he works at home doesn't mean that he's home.
Right.
He's working, you know? And it's the same thing with anything, you know, anybody I mentor or anybody in my businesses, my CEOs, my CFOs, when they come to me after hours and they know those hours are allotted to my family or to my wife or to me, Keaton's not going to get back to me. I just know that. And I
Yeah.
don't care if the world is burning down. He's not
matter.
going to get back to me, because
Yeah.
he has set clear boundaries that his time and attention and energy is in a very specific spot.
Yeah, and dude, here's the other thing too. This is outside of the relationship. I've noticed this myself, where if you're in a situation where it feels like it's crumbling, the worst thing you could do, especially at night when it's your time is supposed to be elsewhere, is to give that focus.
Yeah.
Because when you do, you're depleting yourself. You're already depleted, and then you're depriving yourself of the opportunity to have the connection, the relationship, or if this is in your morning routine time, gym time, study, meditation, whatever, right? If you use that time to be like reactive with messages, it affects your energy and your decision making to actually call better shots. And I've noticed is like, as scary as it's been when shit's burning down and like they need an answer and I don't respond, like the next day, like somehow we survive to the next day. First of all, somehow we always make it. But then also like the power of like having a clear mind and the power of making solid decisions, it's much more effective. And so I feel like we all have a limitation there, and like this limiting belief of like, I need to be responsive. And you do it when you're at work, but you got to have boundaries for yourself. And having those, you'll get more done in less.
And dude, you know, the one thing that I would say for the people that are listening, because I think a lot of people hear this and they're like, yeah, but how do I actually really do that?
Right.
What you have to understand is that you must always put yourself first.
Yep.
You know, I talk about this in marriage. I talk about this in business. I talk about this in parenting. I talk about this in leadership. Ultimately, for you to get out of this life what you want, you have to put yourself in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yep.
And if I don't put myself first, I cannot deliver in the things that I plan on delivering. So one of the things that I teach, if really we're talking about energy, and we are, all of us are energy, if we're not like focused and selfish with our time and our energy, then it depletes, and then we can't give it the way that we want to, right? So if I'm not selfish and I don't say, hey, I got to have my me time because I have to re-energize myself, because I have to be prepared for work. And then after work, my wife knows this too. She knows that when work's over, it's not really over. He needs a certain amount of time to re-energize.
Oh, dude, gold nugget. Yeah.
So that he can give me what ultimately he needs to give me. And she knows this. Like, I'll finish working and she'll say, are you done for the day? And I'll say, yes, I'm done. But she knows that that means, okay, now he's switching hats. He's preparing to re-energize himself, even if it's 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's
to
critical.
then put into our children what they need as his father, our marriage, what I need as his husband, you know, so on and so forth. But you have to be selfish with that time to put it into where it needs to go. If you looked at all of us like we were a battery, and I told you had to put 100% into everything you were doing, well, then you better be plugging in selfishly to make sure you're filling that shit up so you can give it.
Yeah.
And most people don't do that. And here's the cool thing about human nature. Human nature is that we are not able to ultimately focus on 50 things at once. We're able to focus on one thing at a time, and especially men. We have this much space, right? Like, it's 8 inches, that much space to put into something. And if this is not organized and placed in compartments to where it needs to be, and then energized to put into, okay, I'm taking off my work hat and I'm putting on my dad hat. Give me a second to refocus, to energize myself, to be that father, then I'm going to give half the energy. And then the whole thing I've talked about is complete bullshit anyways, because you're like, well, I'm giving all the energy I can. Yeah, because you weren't selfish enough to recharge yourself to give 100%.
Right.
And that's, again, where people go, well, you know, I want to put my wife first. I want to put my family first. I want to put God first.
You've got it wrong. No.
You've got to put yourself first.
100%.
And you have to, even in those boundaries you say you set with other people, you got to set them with yourself.
Yeah.
Dude, I am actual energy. So then I should make sure that I'm selfish enough to go, time out. I got to plug in for a minute. Just give me a second. Let me refocus. Let me compartmentalize. Let me put in the forefront of my mind what it is I'm doing, what my next task is, and then prepare to do that.
That's huge. You can't pour from an empty cup.
No.
Right? I want to pour into my relationship. I want to pour into
Yeah.
this. Like you can't. You got to pour into yourself first.
Yeah.
And so that's huge. I've learned this lesson this last year: the power of meditation, journaling, slowing down, and it's been one of the biggest lessons I've learned, Keaton. And my takeaway going into whenever I do get in a relationship again, just trusting God's timing. I've seen how like I would go from work to the relationship, and even like I would kick it on and show up. I would do well.
Yeah.
But I've seen how this like me time of like going on these walks and meditating, of always being a busy go guy. Like,
Yeah.
And I used to like shame people who would meditate and slow down. Dude, I can't live without it now.
100%.
I think so much clearer. And I can go from a chaotic mindset to like very focused and very intentional and very confident. And I win more in every area. And so, yeah, that 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, dude, I love that.
Dude, and the greatest principle to be taught pertaining to that is self-love. You can only love as much as you love yourself. And when I hear people say, I put my spouse first, I put my children first, you're ultimately depleting your own cup, right? If you're not putting yourself first, you're not replenishing that cup, and you're not able to give as much from that cup as you want to anyways, dude. And my thing is now with people, what if you could fill that cup so much that it overflows? And where does it go when it overflows? To the people you love the most.
I love that, Keaton.
So when you look at, preparing one day to have a new wife, and this is Jim Rohn, he always says, I'll work on me for you if you'll work on you for me. And ultimately that means that love. Like, I'm going to build self-love for me so I can put it into you, and I want you to build self-love for you so you can put it into me. And it's the same principle across the board. That's when you get into attraction rather than pursuing.
Yeah.
And I attract people because of the love that I give them, because of the love that I give myself.
Wow.
And that's where most people
Jeez,
really,
dude.
really get it hard. And they get it wrong, especially Christians. I get an opportunity to speak to a lot of Christians. And every time I talk about this subject, everybody always goes, well, what's the greatest commandment? The greatest commandment is to love God.
Yeah.
Well, what's the second? It's like unto it. Love your neighbor. But
Yeah.
they never finish the scripture out. What is the end of the scripture? God said,
Love your neighbor like you love yourself.
as thyself is what he says, word
Wow.
for word. So God literally sets the metric of how much by not even telling you that the first commandment is to love yourself. He set the metric as that. He said you should love me and your neighbor as much as you love yourself.
Interesting.
So then really, if I read that scripture correctly, then I'm going, holy shit, dude, I don't even like myself. I don't love myself. Of course
Yeah.
I'm not giving my God what I need to. Of course I'm not giving my wife what I need to, because I haven't even done it myself. The greatest principle a human being can do is find love for themselves and trust for themselves above all else. Then they can put that into everybody. And it's so much that they're dumping in, it's just overflowing to everybody.
Yeah.
That's what God does. You don't think God loves himself? Absolutely he does. And he loves himself so much that it just pours out to his children. And it's the same thing for us. So again, you go all the way back. How do you do these things? Well, goes back to you.
Yeah.
That's why personal development is so important.
Yeah.
I struggle in my marriage because I don't love my wife enough. Well, it's because you don't love yourself enough. I struggle with my children because I don't love them enough, or I don't show them love enough. It's because you don't show yourself love enough.
So great. I remember being in my last relationship, just being vulnerable, guys. I was at a point where I'm like, I want to be pursued more,
Yeah.
And dude, it fell back on me. I wasn't giving myself enough self-love, Keaton.
100%.
And had I done that more, it would have radiated back when the attention would have reflected. So
And I'll tell you, dude, this is really important because I hate talking about a subject, but not giving a deliverable for people who actually listen, because they hear that and they go, oh, I identify with you. But how do I do it? And I do this with everybody that I mentor and I coach. It all comes from the way we were raised, the childhood trauma, right? And if you could identify where that came from in your childhood, you could then focus on where you're going to put your work. So one of the things that I always struggled with is I was always seeking for people to accept me and be proud of me. I never knew why.
significance.
I never knew why. And from the time I was 21 till the time I was 29, I burned down my first marriage. I was not a good father. And I did exactly what I'll tell you guys to do. What I did is I identified in my life when I was growing up, when it was my hardest and my deepest, darkest times, when I was struggling. By the way, I had great parents. I didn't have crazy whatever. I mean, we had a lot of challenges and trials. Both my parents had cancer. Our house burned down. We had a lot of crazy shit. but my life was still good. And when I did this exercise, it shifted everything as to where I needed to put my work. I went back and I realized when I was about 15, I was a really good football player. I was the best in Utah when I was in high school. I got all state and all that shit. And I remember every single game, everybody looked to me as the leader and everybody looked to me to make the plays. And I remember making them. I was good. And I would come off of the field and everybody there would say, dude, you're incredible. That was great. You played a great game. You had great stats, blah, blah. And I would always get to my dad and he would always say to me, what could you have done better? Always. I never heard from my father, I'm really proud of you. I never heard that. So I went all the way back to the 15-year-old me and I wrote a letter to him. And in that letter, I had to identify to him what he needed to hear. So I began to write this letter and I said, Keaton, if I took a time machine back to that person, and you have to identify who that is. Was it 12 when you had the trauma? Was it 15? Was it 9? And you take that time machine and you sit down in front of that human being. And by the way, and this is a big, really good piece that I give people, don't give them advice. They don't need advice. Don't sit down and say, dude, you'll keep crushing. You don't. No. What do they need to hear? And you know what it was for me? My parents said, I love you all the time. So it wasn't love. My parents cared for me. It wasn't care. It was that I never heard, I'm proud of you. So I identified that.
That was the root.
It was the root.
Yeah.
And you know what I did? You know why I burned down my marriage? Because I wanted to get so filthy rich because I wanted everybody around me to be proud of me.
You.
I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 30, which I accomplished, but I burned everything else down. And it was because I had not learned the most valuable lesson I could possibly learn, which was, Keaton, and I had this conversation with young Keaton. I said, hey, Keaton, you know what I want you to hear? I'm really, really proud of you. That's what I want you to hear. And dude, and through tons of emotion, I realized that everything I had done in my life up to that point was trying to get everybody else to say, hey, dude, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And then you know what I realized? That's where the work has to happen.
Yeah.
You know who should be proud of you?
You.
Me.
Yeah.
And then I shifted and said, okay, what must I do now to make me proud of me, that I no longer seek it from anyone else, because I've made all these decisions in my life based on wanting everybody around me, seeking the validation of my father to hear, I'm proud of you. I wanted everybody else to say it. And then I went, you know what? I got to work on being proud of myself.
Yeah.
And the only way that I can do that is by aligning in my core to do the things that make me proud. And then as I went down that path, everything shifted in my life. Everything. My marriage that I now have became beautiful. My children became more, everything became better because I no longer sought validation from anyone.
Yeah.
I sought it from myself.
Shifted from external to internal.
Internal.
Yeah.
And dude, and that's when everything changed. You know, we everybody always says, I don't care about the haters, right? You always hear that. Everybody cares about what people think. But when you learn to check yourself first,
Yeah.
you no longer give a shit. I don't care what you have to say, good or bad.
Yeah.
You don't like me? Well, do I like myself? Yes. I don't care.
Yeah.
You're proud of me? Well, am I proud of myself? I don't care.
Yeah.
Nothing you have to say will change anything internally for me because I check it within myself. And when I did this exercise, by the way, I do this exercise a lot.
Yeah.
I check with myself, where must I put in the work? And then when I put in that work, I get better across the board.
Right.
And when you go to build your next marriage, you will realize that the validation that you seek of, I want you to notice me, will completely change because you will notice yourself.
Love that.
You will put the time into yourself. You'll put the energy into yourself, and you don't need it from her.
Yeah.
Because you give it to yourself.
Keaton, this is so profound, guys. I've seen a little inkling of success this last several months when I wasn't expecting it, and I've read less business books. I've read less on sales and persuasion, influence, and I've read more of spiritual things like this. And I've read about 5 different books. And when I say read, I study, dude.
Yeah.
I could tell you what's on the 56th page of all of these books, and the biggest work was understanding I need to slow down. That was the message I got from God. It was like screaming at it, like, slow the F down. I've got a whole journal entry on it, right? And that's when it began, going back to where is this coming from? Because most like high achievers, they have significance at the forefront. Tony always talks about like, significance is number one, and you'll achieve a lot, but you'll burn shit down on the way.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing. And you come at a different angle of understanding when you go back to the childhood work, the why that's so important is because you give yourself grace and love.
Yeah.
Right. And you stop condoning yourself, and then you can empower yourself to actually find out and uproot that and give yourself that love. You writing that letter was you giving yourself the praise that you were craving.
Yeah.
And when you're seeking out to achieve a target or anything, it could be a sales target, it could be a relationship, fitness, and you're doing it for external validation versus doing it because you are wanting to improve and do it, and you don't need that validation. You're already good.
Yeah.
Dude, it's different level of energy and attraction. And as far as attract, don't chase, like that in sales, like part of the reason I've done so well is because I'm 0% needy. Like I don't need shit.
Yeah.
Like I walk into the homes, and if they think I want that deal, I will make it so damn clear.
Yeah.
I don't need shit. I'm happy to help.
Yeah.
And I reek of like, I'm good. Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm not just coming off arrogant.
Yeah.
There's ways I come in with humility. But that energy of being good and finding that inner peace will take your game, not in sales, in your relationship, to a new level. I've seen it personally, and I know I'm just at the beginning stages of that. And so I'm just validating and like, I guess testifying to what you're saying.
And dude, it's crazy. It doesn't matter what you do, whether it's sales, you're an entrepreneur, you're a CEO. When you begin to realize what you lack and you understand that you can fulfill it, you no longer need anything in this world, people, thing, material, to fulfill it. It's all from within.
Yeah.
That's when you truly start to understand this principle of attraction over pursuance.
Yeah.
You no longer pursue the girl anymore that you want.
Yeah.
You attract her. Why? Because she sees in you that there is nothing she can offer to persuade you or fill a void in you. It's all fulfilled within yourself. And by the way, that's who you want.
Yeah,
you don't want
absolutely.
a spouse that's jealous of you because she has you to fill the void of jealousy because she is good within herself, which, by the way, that you want to talk about how you level up, because people ask me, how do I get in bigger levels? You yourself have to level up. You have to be able to offer that to people. You've been in those circles where you have very successful people, and then you have one or two people who aren't successful. And it feels like in the conversation, the two people that aren't successful are trying their best to validate why they should be there. And no one there wants them there.
Yeah.
And then you have the circle of the billionaire or the multimillionaire that's standing there going, I don't care if you think I'm rich or not. I know I am.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit to validate myself. You know, you always hear that, like, rich people don't tell you they're rich. People who are in really good shape don't tell you they're in really good shape. People who are successful don't tell you that they're really successful. It's validated within themselves. They don't need any validation from you.
Yeah.
And that goes all the way back to you attracting what you seek rather than you pursuing it. And it's a game changer across the board.
Yeah, it is, Keaton. I love that. I'm just thinking of like practical things here. What are a couple specific and practical things that somebody can do either on a daily or weekly basis to get to know themselves better, and to break through and break free of these limiting beliefs, whether it's trauma, and really give themselves that validation?
I think the biggest thing is taking inventory of your life and where you're successful and where you lack. Then when you realize where you lack, understanding why you lack. And by the way, that takes a long time.
It does, yeah.
It takes a while to see, okay, I lack here, but why do I lack here?
Right.
Right? I only lack here because of my internal belief. Why do I believe that? What must I identify that gave me that belief? And then let me go to change that belief, right? So anybody who wants to do something like this, I tell them it starts with journaling. You got to write, man. You got to take the time to write. One of the reasons I like praying, even if there isn't a God, is you're writing out loud, right? You're saying out loud the things that you're thinking, you believe, and you can ultimately hear them and go, do I align with that? No, let me shift it. It's the same thing with journaling. As you begin to write and journal who you are, where you are, what you do, and understand you're the fucking problem, but you're also the solution, then I would identify what is the solution for that which I lack. And then I go to work. But it's all done by taking that inventory, journaling. I think I used to hate
Yeah,
journaling.
same.
I thought it was the stupidest thing in the world.
can
Why
tell.
would I sit down and start writing?
Yeah.
But it helps me to identify in me where I must put in the work. And
Yeah.
when I put in that work, I know exactly the target in which I have to hit.
Exactly.
And it was the same thing for me when I had to identify, why am I the way I am? Oh, it's because I'm seeking for everybody to be proud of me. Okay, I must work on being proud of myself. And then I put the time into doing that.
Yeah, it's directly correlated to self-awareness.
Yeah.
And you can't change, if you're not self-aware. I have so many people that come and like, if they ask like, hey, I need you to come shadow me, or I need someone to come shadow me because I don't know what I need to change.
Yeah.
I will instantly call that out and say, you will never grow if you're relying on someone else.
100%.
You need to self-diagnose. And so I never send someone out to shadow those guys.
Yeah. I mean, dude, listen, there is probably something to be learned there. But you're right. If you're not self-aware and you can't take inventory as for where you're at in life, you'll never be able to plan out where you want to be.
Yeah.
And that's what most people, 99% of the world, they lack self-awareness to do any of those things.
They do. And journaling allows you to get the clarity. I've seen it in my own life. I've gotten big into journaling, and it gives you clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And the pinnacle of leadership is having certainty. Even if you're calling a wrong shot, but if you do it with certainty, people follow the execute. Even if it's the wrong call, things will turn out right. I've seen that.
Yeah.
And you're basically giving yourself the validation of certainty, and you're identifying what's lacking, right?
Yep.
And so when we talk about journaling, we're not just talking about, here's what I did today.
Yeah. It's much deeper
It's
than
going
that.
to the ugly shit, and it's going, yeah,
And the deeper you go, the more the answers you find.
love that.
A lot of people, when they hear journaling, like you said, they're like, what the hell do I journal? I don't know,
Right.
man. Just be vulnerable.
That's it.
Be really transparent and really honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And then go deep on that.
Yeah.
And when you do that and you go deep, you're going to find the answers. Tim Grover, again, he's the one that says, you got to go into the darkness to find your light.
Love that.
Well, how dark do you want to go? Well, the darker I go, the more light I find.
Yeah.
And then I can take that light and take it to the world. And I can take it and do whatever I want to do with it. But I must go deep first. And that's part of journaling.
Yeah. I love
And
that.
and it's repetition. You're not going to start tomorrow journaling and go deep.
Right.
Not going to happen.
Takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. It's time and time and time and repetition and time under tension to find out what is it I should be talking and writing and putting down. How do I identify? How clear do I identify the problems and the issues? And how deep do I want to go on the issue at hand?
Yeah.
And the deeper I go, the quicker I find the answer. I always ask people, and this is one of the things I would do if I was going to help you with the shit we talked about earlier, which
Yeah.
was how to become a better speaker and really tell your story.
Yeah.
When a human being can identify in them what their why is, their how doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. We've heard that. But how do I identify my why is really the key to how strong my why becomes. And one of the things I would ask you, and it's the same thing again that I do with a lot of people that I mentor, is ask the really simple question. If you had a microphone in front of the world and you had 5 minutes to share with the world what you think is most pertinent, what you think is most important, what would that be? And I would ask you to answer that.
You can have everything you want in your life. You don't have to choose between having your family, having relationship success, having business success, and your health. You can have it all.
Why?
I believe that because I've seen the beginnings of that, and I've seen there's very few men and women that do have that, and most of the world lives by the limiting belief that like money's evil, or that you're going to become prideful or arrogant if you succeed in business, or you'll never see your family, you'll neglect your family, and there's so many stories of that. You start believing that that's true, and you miss the fruit of financial freedom, and you miss the fruit of having optimal health and energy, and then the beauty of the relationship. There's no amount of success that I personally want. I've discovered this that would come at the cost of a relationship, and so ultimately helping people achieve their dreams and their visions for what they want, and understanding they don't have to burn everything down to get there. Because just like you said, like those two in the room will look at everyone else and say, well, here's why I'm not successful, because I actually put my family first. Actually you can do all of those things.
And one of the things I would tell you to think about, and this is why I say, identifying your why is a really powerful thing. You've heard the saying that we're most qualified to help the people we used to be. Mm-hmm. And when I hear somebody share their why, I always like to go really hard at this to either intensify their why or to make them reevaluate their why. And it's this, at the end of our life, every single one of us, we're going to stand in front of God. And in front of God, he is going to ask very specific questions about what we did here. And here's the best part of that. You're not going to answer for yourself. You'll have a multitude of people behind you that will answer that for you. And when you understand that, then you understand that day will be heaven or hell. You will have him say, what did you do and how did you help other people? And in what way, through your learning, did you empower people, or because you didn't go hard enough, did you not? And then you don't get an answer. You have a multitude behind you that will either raise their hand and say, that message that you just shared with me didn't get to me, it didn't get to me. Or you'll have thousands and thousands and thousands of people praise your name and say, he understood his message, he understood his why, and he changed my life. And that ultimately will be the day of reckoning. And when you look at life that way, that your why and what you ultimately just said is your message to the world, you will go 10 times harder at that than you are currently going. Understanding that at some point when this life is over, everybody behind you is either going to say he chased it, he achieved it, and he shared it with me, or they're going to say, no, he didn't do what he was supposed to do. He didn't share with me what he was supposed to. He didn't touch me the way that he was supposed to touch me. And he didn't accomplish what he was supposed to accomplish. And when you think about it like that, it should either redirect your why or it should empower it. And you should go 10 times harder at whatever it is that message is, which again, I would go back to journaling. One of the things you should journal is exactly what you just said to me over and over and over again, asking that question, what do I really want to leave this world? How do I want to impact this world? What do I want to share with this world? And at some point, you're going to find your why. And it is going to be so powerful that the how won't matter anymore. The company you build right now won't matter.
Yeah.
The people it won't matter how you do it. It's your why is so powerful that one day, again, when you stand in front of that multitude of people behind you, every single one of them will stand up and say, that message, that why, it touched me and it changed my life. It changed my family's life. It changed everybody around me. And you'll stand there either proud that you accomplished what you did, or you'll stand there in disbelief that why didn't I go harder at what I was supposed to go at? And I would even challenge you to do that. And everybody listening, same thing. You should identify your why and what you wish to share with the world, the impact that you wish to have on the world, and then realize through journaling, when I stand there that day, is that really what I want the world behind me to have? And will I go after it? Will I be hungry enough to go after it? That's when you'll empower yourself, and that why will be so crazy. You won't need the tools. You won't need the mentoring. You won't need the help because you'll be so focused on accomplishing that shit. Again, the how won't matter.
I love that. If your why's big enough, you'll find a way how.
100%.
Yeah, that's powerful, Keaton. I love that, man. Yeah, for me personally, that I know there's gonna be more to it, and I've gotten more clarity on that answer over the last actually 6 months.
Yeah. And look at how much more successful you've been. Right. Because your why is more powerful.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And for me, it actually does go back to I get emotional time about because it does go back to massive trauma and failure that I had.
Yeah.
In multiple points in my life, right? And so I love that, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for tuning in. This was a massive, huge breakthrough episode for salespeople, entrepreneurs. Keaton, I appreciate your time.
Absolutely, man. Honored to be here.
Thank you so much.